Howdy, 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 back at it again. Today's video is going to focus on Bison, corner, offense, and pressure. First things first, if you find this kind of content useful, if you enjoy it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm really trying to grow the channel in YouTube and I'd super appreciate it. Otherwise, with this type of content and tutorial you want to see me produce, please leave a comment, let me know so I can get working on it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So, the two knockdowns, or the one knockdown really, that I'm going to look at is this medium light bomb knockdown. Very similar. The reason I want to look at it is I think you're going to end up going into it a lot, right? If you land a medium, you're probably going into that, right? If you land a DI, you're going to end up going into that. If you hit them with Psycho Crusher when they have a bomb on them, why can't I get a Psycho Crusher? Holy cow. You're probably going into that, right? It doesn't matter if you're going cheap or expensive with the EX stomp follow-ups anyway, right? So I want to examine this. So first things first, we can do forward dash, and obviously that's strong because one, it sets up a throw loop, right? But it's also strong because after this throw, this bomb is really close to exploding, okay? So if we do a meaty sequence, for example, we can set up maybe a low overhead kiss. So there, they block correctly, plus 13. Here they block correctly, plus 12. And they do have to block correctly. So if they're only standing block, they get hit by this, and wouldn't you know it, we can combo, and we kind of loop the situation. If they only crouching block, we get a combo, and we loop the situation, assuming we don't do what I just did there and drop the combo. So obviously already that's pretty strong. We can also throw after the back heavy kick if we want to, okay? Now, what are some of their options against this? Well, they can't mash on the low, right? They get counter hit and we get the same conversion. They can mash on the overhead because there's a like 5 or 6 ring gap there. So that's not super good for us, right? However, right, one of the cool things about this is if we just stand jab, or excuse me, if we just wait for them to mash their jab, the bomb actually whiff punishes their button and we get a conversion. So it's not a super strong option, even though they theoretically could kind of time it so that they block until they block the low and then they mash jab in the gap of the overhead. It's not great, right? Where I would call that fuzzy mashing. Theoretically they could fuzzy mash, but because we can just sort of sit here and punish it, it's an option, but it's not like a foolproof, it just solves the situation option, okay? Another thing that you're like, okay, well, what about parry, right? What if they just parry? That'll deal with this. Well, regardless, even if it does, sure, they don't take drive gauge damage, but you're still plus in their face. Right? Okay. Alright, you're still plus in their face. However, the parry, doing parry expands the throw box. So if you just go for throw immediately, you'll grab them, okay? And they'll get thrown. And if they don't do anything, the bomb blows up in their face and you're still plus. So the bomb explosion sort of covers your throw whiff, which is cool, okay? Otherwise, again, if they block correctly, you're plus 13 right in their face. You can throw, you can shimmy, you can set up whatever sort of mix you want. The way I think about it is you're plus 13 here instead of being plus 21 here, right? Otherwise you're just sort of setting up the throw loop situation. That's sort of how I think about it, okay? Now, what other options do we have after this knockdown? Well, one other option we have is something like drive rush jab, okay? Into a tick throw. So I like this. One, it's plus 2, so we can frame trap whatever, right? But also, now, again, we can still do something like drive rush up throw or dash up throw. So they're still in this throw loop situation, except this bomb is very, very close to exploding. So we can't actually do the same sequence as before because you notice the bomb blows up too fast. So instead we go straight into medium punch. And all of a sudden, once again, they're in a spot where they just have to know how to block it. So if they only stand block, boom, they get clip low. If they only crouch block, they get hit by the overhead, right? Good solution now here too, whereas before they could mash on the overhead, drive rush means that they can't. However, it does also mean that there isn't a gap here, right? So there's not a huge incentive for them to mash, right? Now, that being said, you're like, okay, so they can't mash, but of course, these don't come out at the same time. I can fuzzy block it, right? Like, I'm just gonna block low for 16 frames because this comes out in frame 16, and then I'm gonna switch to high block, right? Because the overhead comes out in frame 22. So you go, okay, they can fuzzy block it. And they can fuzzy block the target combo. That is correct. They can do that. Right? They can fuzzy guard here 100%. They can block low, then they can block high. And that'll absolutely work. However, we don't have to go into the target combo. We can do a different low. Low forward, for example. So this, because this actually has us going through the recovery of the medium punch, means that that low will come out in frame 23, where the overhead will come out in frame 22. So that means they're going to have to, if they want to fuzzy the whole thing, they're going to have to go from down back, right, until frame 16, then back for exactly 6 frames, or right, however many frames until it comes out, and then back to down back. So it's very difficult, I think, to time into practice because you're ending at one point where you're going to have to block standing, and then on the next frame be blocking crouching, and you aren't stand blocking for that long. So I think that makes it a lot harder to deal with, and you're still plus 14, and again, you get a conversion if the low forward hits, right? So they're in the spot where they have a really hard time dealing with high-low mix. And once again, if they try to parry, except this time we'll put it here. If they try to parry, oh, went too soon. You're still going to be plus 14, plus 13 right in their face. And of course, you can still go for throw, right? And then set up the throw loop situation. So that's something, you know, these are just setups that I think are fairly strong. Of course, instead of going for this tick throw, whoops, let me put him on block after first attack. You can sort of frame trap with it, and if this counter hits, you can combo into that. So like, and then into OD, and you can get these big conversions, right, if you don't go for the throw, if they're mashing. Delay tech, you might think is a great option against this, but I think it's going to be very difficult to both delay tech and think about fuzzy block, right? It's going to be hard to delay tech and fuzzy block at the same time. Most people that, you know, aren't like professional level players aren't going to be thinking in that kind of a depth. So I think this is a nice, easy setup. Whether this becomes end game stuff, I don't know, but I think certainly early on, getting high-low mix is going to be very strong indeed. Hopefully this is useful, and as always, have a good time.